went on a youth group mission trip to this youth festival in LA, and they had a booth there where you could record demos for, you'd have like 10 minutes or whatever and you record your song. And so I went with this song that I had written and recorded it. And the people that were running the booth, I was really young then, they were much older than me. They made some comments like, "Oh, that's a pretty good song, that's really good." And that really like excited me and like sort of inspired me and spurred me on to like keep recording. And so I, went to my friend Ryan, who at the time was just someone that I knew from high school and was in high school with. And
we were talking on Instant Messenger or something, and he sent me this demo that he had recorded. And I was blown away by it because I didn't know that he had developed like such a good voice, I guess. So from there I said, do you have more songs? Like, can I record these songs for you? So over the course of a few years, I would always kind of demo his songs very crudely in my room, like on, just the computer mic.
He liked to do things differently or do things and figure out ways of doing them that were his own. Old saying, march to the beat of a different drum. In school, he took the violin. He chose that in elementary school because they still had music programs then. But then he decided he didn't want to take the violin, he wanted to take the guitar, and he really wanted to take the guitar. And I was thinking, gosh, everybody plays the guitar. Do something different.
But I stopped doing violin just because I just found it kind of boring. I was more intrigued in areas of music that I felt were applicable in my life, and I didn't really feel like violin was very applicable to what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in a band, and unless, I wanted to start a Dave Matthews cover band, then I don't think violin really would have helped me.
I formed the band with our original guitar player Patrick and our original drummer John, who are no longer in the band. And I remember showing Nick a demo of one of the songs, and he liked it, and he was like, it was kind of in passing, we were all kind of hanging out at another band's house, and he's like, "Oh, this is pretty cool, like, hey, can I come try out for your band?" And it worked out.
I think what people need to realize about bands these days is that you don't just get somewhere out of the blue. It's not like the 60s or 70s where you just had to play in some bars and be a good rock band and some guy in a suit would find you and say, "Here's $50,000, and let's record an album." A lot of people say that having a band is like having X number of girlfriends, like however many people are in the band, that's how many girlfriends you have. In a lot of ways that is sort of true. I think knowing somebody is one thing and working with them is a completely different thing. You actually begin to see, and by shortcomings I don't mean they're a rageaholic and they're physically abusive. I mean, they might not have the best memory, or they might show up late all the time or whatever, right? So it's sort of, you get to see sort of like the inconsistencies in people's personality.
I mean, we've been through a bunch of different members. We're on our third and final now, as I would say. And kind of had a revolving door of guitar players and stuff.
I think the first person that left our band was our original drummer, and that was the first, Picture Atlantic is the first band I've ever been in, so that to me was pretty devastating. And I just remember going home after he had left and thinking like, oh, the band is over because, John is leaving the band, but it ended up working out and it ended up being okay. And then some people, I think we were all very glad that they left for one reason or another. One of our guitar players we were either going to kick him out or he was going to leave pretty soon, and so I went ahead and sort of bought an electric guitar and an amp to sort of get ready for that, to sort of prepare ahead of time so that I can sort of be the only guitar player that's necessary.
He couldn't really play like a lead guitar line, I guess, to save his life for a while, and I know he didn't focus on that, I suppose. So he, in the earlier days of the band, even if he would write a song, like one of the other guitar players would play it and he would just sing, or sometimes he would just play like acoustic guitar on some of the stuff. But his abilities have grown immensely since then.
When I write songs, there's not really a particular way that I write them. It's different every time. Sometimes I'll start with a lyric, or I'll have some lyrics in mind and I'll kind of build a melody around that. A lot of times what I'll do is play guitar or piano or hum a melody and then build the music around that. The last album that Picture Atlantic did was a big one for us. In terms of the message of the album and just the overall feel of the album, a little more political and a little more socially conscious, and a lot of the songs are about sort of socially conscious scenarios. Specifically, there was one song on the album called Regina, which deals with the concept of racism and how racism is very, very, very much alive in this country, and that there's still an immense amount of racism in the system itself. I think white people have a massive privilege just by being white. And I think that's something that people are sort of afraid to talk about and don't want to talk about because they say, oh, well, Martin Luther King came and so everything's fixed. And that's actually, I don't believe that's the case at all. So I wrote a song about that.
The first time that I had heard the actual lyrics was while he was tracking it. And a lot of us were like, well, this is kind of heavy stuff, you know what I mean? And I think I remember it was Brian, our keyboard player, said something like, oh, well, this is kind of crazy or whatever. I don't know, I think some people, even within our own band, were kind of like shocked.
A lot of times what would happen is that people would misread the lyrics online and actually think that I was racist. So we got some like hate mail from people saying, you guys are, racist and you guys are messed up, and because they had misread the lyrics.
Because there's some lines in there that are said sarcastically or from a different perspective, like to show, how ridiculous that side of things is. The song's kind of meant to make people think a little bit, I guess, and say, everything's not right in the world.
I was hoping that people wouldn't be offended, and so I had this really horrible sinking feeling in my stomach. I hate racism. I'm not a racist. I think that that's terrible, and so it was really awful to be called something that I absolutely abhor, and that's really was a strange experience for me. But then I was reading the rest of the comments, and there were like 12 other comments from our fans actually defending us and explaining to this person what the song was actually about, which felt really good.
Last time, oh, this is the last time I claim to be colorblind. Oh, to see your skin as it should be, so naive to be PC. So what kills us now through the land of the worst of race and scorn.
I think in terms of a message, there's a lot of thoughts and thought processes that go through my head in any given day, and there's a lot of subjects that I think about, and thinking about that might give me ideas for, hey, it would be really cool to write a song about waking up in the morning, or write a song about drinking a cup of hot chocolate.